a bit about local development for WordPress, because that's kind of where you would go next from here. So first up, why? Why would you do this? And just to put like a personal note on this, I did not do local development, which means developing. So local development means that you're working on your website on your personal desktop or laptop computer, not on a server. Okay. I only started doing this probably 4 years ago. I was always working on a server. I would set up like a development site, and I would just constantly be pushing things to the server, which just takes more time. So the reasons you would develop locally, you don't have to rely on that server, so you don't have to wait for things to upload, and you don't have to FTP things and have different programs open. So it speeds up your development process. You can see your changes. Oh, sure. Turn that on. You can see your changes instantly. It's easier to modify PHP and see those changes quickly. And so you'll be able to see changes. You don't need an internet connection, which if that's something, you can test your theme from a variety of perspectives. You could do that either way, but it's just faster and easier to develop locally. But you need software to do that because WordPress runs through a database. You need something that serves the database. It's the software that runs the database, which is where all the content is stored. So regular websites are just text files that specify the markup of a page, so how it's going to look. The content is in the HTML. It pulls the images from a certain folder on your computer. WordPress stores all that in a database, and the PHP is the ants that run and say, talk to the database and say, the database wants this, pull this file. There's a lot of back and forth between the HTML, the CSS, and the database that's putting the site together. So it's more complicated. So we need a program or a development environment to make it work, basically. So there are different options, of course, for a development environment. WordPress runs on PHP, which PHP only runs on an Apache or Linux server. There are two different kinds of servers, just like we have a PC and a Mac. Servers come in different flavors. So when you're developing WordPress, you need a LAMP stack. That's Linux, Apache, MySQL, thank you. MySQL, PHP, yeah, it's written there. And those are the technologies that server runs. If you're running a site like .NET Nuke or Electron or Sitefinity, those run on ASP.NET, which is the Microsoft version of PHP. So kind of consider it Spanish versus French. They do the same thing. They have almost all the same words. They just do it differently, right? So you're in a bodega versus a patisserie. So there are programs, free ones, that are pre-bundled that you install on your home desktop or laptop computer. They have different names. Here's XAMPP, MAMP, WAMP, LAMP. There's like a bunch of them with those funny names. In full disclosure, I tried to set one of these up first, and I had epically failed. It did not work at all. It was above my head. I could not get it to work. The one that all the developers I know at 10up use this varying vagrants, VVV they call it. This was written by programmers at this company, and everyone at the company uses it. I've never used it. I've never tried it. I like ServerPress. It is made for designers. It's not super pretty, but it works quite well once you get it all set up. Greg Franklin is like the tech support guy there, and you can call him and he will walk you through it. He's super great. He goes to almost all the WordCamp events. He's super accessible. ServerPress is run by 3 guys. It's just a really great product. Great service. Greg Franklin is the tech guy. If you call them, that's who you'll probably talk to. It's Greg with 2 G's. Super nice guy. ServerPress has a free version. The paid version helps you, let's see. I'm not going to play their happy little video. So there's a limited and a premium. You have to pay for premium to get phone support. And it's like $100. Yeah. So it wasn't that bad.
Per year?
I think it's per year. Or it's a one-time with a yearly re-up. I can't remember. I haven't had to pay. I paid once and that was it. So you download this and you install it on your local computer.
And I'm sorry, what does it do that WordPress doesn't do?
ServerPress sets up your local development environment. So if you download WordPress to your home computer and try and run it, it's not going to work because it's not tied to a database. It's not going to work at all. You need a server to run the database and the web interaction. So these local development environments are needed to run WordPress on your local computer. Mostly because you need the pipe between the database and the web browser. Yeah.
So if you develop it using one of these things, does all of your content go into some kind of package that you then can put onto WordPress?
Yep. I'm going to show you that.
So
next.
it does that for you?
It creates the database, and then you can download the database. So like last week, we downloaded the duplicator package, and they call it a package because it's all the WordPress files and the database together. Because you need those two parts when you're going to move a website. So the other reason you would develop locally is if a good case would be your client has a website up, they want to redesign, they don't want to give you access to their server, they are sensitive to privacy, and they don't want you putting it online. So you would have to develop locally, and then you would need a way to take your local, once the site's done, you need a way to take that site and replace the old one on their server. So that's the primary reason you would need to develop locally, other than it just being kind of faster and easier in a lot of ways.
And the free version does give you that capability to develop it locally.
Yes, it gives you limited, so you can't export an archive. So if you wanted to deploy is when you push it to another server, you would need the premium version. I think I did it by hand successfully once, but it's just a pain. It's worth $100. It really is worth it. I use it all the time. So once you have ServerPress, you can spin up new sites all the time. So if you wanted to try something out, you could just spin up a test site and make your changes. And if you break it, you have a backup and you don't have to worry about it. So that's nice. It's really great for learning new things and trying out things. Okay. So once you develop that site on your local computer, you have to get it to its new home. So Duplicator works with ServerPress to package the files. And that's the one I tried to show you last week that did not work out for me. I love Duplicator because it creates a full backup of a website. So it still has a place in my life. I install it on all my sites. That's what I use for backups because it backs up all of the WP content. So it backs up all the plugins, all the themes, all the uploaded media, all the posts and pages and authors and users. And it packages up the SQL database. So you'll get a file in the zip called database.sql, SQL. And that's the database. That's the beef. That's what you need. Without that, your site is broken.
And Clone doesn't do that?
Clone does it too, but Clone puts it on your server. Clone worked beautifully for me when I tried it for that, that housekeeping site I showed you. I used Clone. You download it. So you take the one that you have, you download WP Clone on both sites, the old one and the new one. You hit a button that says, I want to move this site somewhere else. it creates a backup full file on your server, and then you go to your new site and you import it. Super easy. It was really great. The only time that might not work is if your server has any kind of weird lockdowns where it won't let you back up create those files on your server. I don't think that's as common anymore. It used to be more of a problem, but I think you're going to be fine with that. So the duplicator has that installer that I showed you that I had trouble with. I've had it work beautifully and I've had it not work at all. So I'm not sure. I think a lot of that is my problems with my knowledge, not knowing which one to put in, but I put in every darn thing I could find and it still wouldn't work. I don't know what was up with that. I've deployed manually by FTPing files. I don't recommend that. It's a headache. There's a lot of step-by-step help articles I have to read when I do it that way. And I just want to throw this last point out there that if you're working with a team of programmers, there's a software called GitHub, which creates branches of programming changes and additions so that multiple people can work on the same site at the same time. It gets very complicated very quickly, but I just want you to know that that's when you're working on big websites with lots of programmers and lots of designers, you use GitHub. And it works like a tree. If you kind of imagine a trunk, that's the beginning of the website, and then they create branches for each programming change. And that way when they fix an issue, they just install a branch. So they're just working with parts of the site, not the whole site. Because usually these sites are really, really big. So anyway. So when you manually deploy there's this one file in WordPress that has all the directions to connect the website to the database. And that's the WP config file. This is, let me try and pull this up and see. This is what WordPress provides to kind of explain what that WP config file is. It essentially tells WordPress where the database is, credentials to get in, and what the host name is, or where the website lives. So you'll see, it'll come, when it installs, it fills all this in for you. Every WordPress website has to have this file or it will not work. So I just wanted to show you that real fast, because you might someday have to deal with that. So how does WordPress work again? I wanted to kind of go over this real fast. Somebody mentioned that they might try theming, and then I think Sandy, you just mentioned that. So I just wanted to show you again, kind of, if you do local development, this is going to be more relevant. And as you work on it, it helps to kind of know what's happening in the background. And this infographic is pretty darn good. So I'm going to show you this. This is by Yoast. They run the SEO plugin that I really like. Yoast is a guy who started a company, pretty good at what he does. So they have anatomy of a WordPress theme. So the theme, so WordPress is software that runs a website. So the WordPress software has core files that do things. So they call all the parts of the website so that it displays, they call all the content, it resizes images, it creates users and passwords. So it's a pretty complex core software that runs all the features of the website. So it allows the menus to be created and to be edited, the pages and posts to be created and edited. It adds the tags and the categories and uses taxonomy. That's like the core software. What you guys have primarily worked with is a theme that controls the way that the website is displayed and some of how it functions. Most of that function is already built in, right? In the theme, you've got different files. And when I first learned about this, I was like, why would you do that? That makes no sense. But I get it now. It's breaking it up. It's kind of, think of like the Model T, the Ford, when they broke it up into interchangeable parts, how they could basically control the auto industry. When you break it up into all these little pieces, then you can just change the thing that's broken or change the thing you want to fix. So the header file, so these are all files within your site. The theme files include header, sidebar, footer, and those literally pull the content via PHP. They'll have a PHP code that says pull this content from the database, and they'll have HTML and CSS that designs the look and feel of it. The loop goes through all of your post content, and it says, give me 10, look at all the posts, give me the 10 most recent, and give me the header, the image, and the first 50 characters of the post content. And then do that again and again and again. Do that 10 times and display it on the page this way. That's what the loop does. It runs through the database, pulls things out, and shows them. The loop is crazy. It's because imagine if you messed up the loop, it would go on forever and it would kind of just fry your machine. Everyone will inevitably do that. If you touch the loop, you will break it. And then you will figure out how to learn it. It's just kind of weird. So the sidebar displays the sidebars. You have different sidebars. They're not always in the side. You may have noticed sometimes they're up top, sometimes they're in weird places, but there's special code to display a sidebar. And then there's the footer that contains some, like you put your social links in there. So it might have a space for a menu, it might have a space for some widgets, but it also closes the HTML of the site. So those are the different kind of interchangeable parts of every site. And then the theme has to have a certain amount of files to display content at a very base level, and often it comes with more. It has to have an index. That's the default page that shows up when you bring up the site. It has to have a single.php, which is the template that shows a single poster page. So the index runs the loop and brings up all the posts or all the posts or shows a page. And the index is the default starting page of any website. Single will display the posts. And it runs through the loop. It contains a loop of queries. It chooses one post and displays it. It can have sidebars. And then page controls what your pages look like. So these are all just different layouts. So it's a layout and a pull of content from the database. And then there's archive, category, tag, and there's sometimes more like testimonials, grid page, portfolio, authors, stuff like that. So those are other layouts that pull different kinds of content from the database. Here's a bit on the loop. So start the loop. It's a if this, then if the conditions are such as this, then do this thing. So this is going to loop through all the poster pages, grab the title, grab the excerpt, grab the content, grab the category, grab the author, grab the date, any other tags. It'll check if it's supposed to stop. Like if you're only pulling 10, it'll keep track of how many it's pulled. And once it gets to 10, it'll exit. Or if it's at 9, it'll start over again. And that's the river. So anytime you see a website that lists all the posts, it's often called the blog feed or the river. The loop is building that.
Okay. Now, these websites, can you go back in and just modify the loop? Like if it's too long for you and you don't want 10, you just want 5 posts, and
you can do that in the reading settings. It says how many posts to show in the loop. You can add stuff to the loop. So the way you would mess with the loop is if you wanted to pull, say you add another field for featured image. I'm not seeing one here. So say you wanted to add a featured image to your blog river. You might have to put that in the loop and have it pull the title, the excerpt, the content, the featured image, and then all the other stuff. So that's the kind of situation where you would mess with the loop. You might also get more complex and do like, if you're on this page and you're starting the loop, only pull from this category. So you can customize the loop as needed. for different situations. So if you're, so like Jennifer's new website, I think it's Inspired Imperfection. She has different categories of blog posts. So she has like just adventures. So they would have customized that loop to pull all the blogs. So first it would say, if you're on the adventures page, go in, check all the posts that are in this category of adventures, then pull the title, the excerpt, the content, the category, the author, the date, the other tags, and pull up to 10, and then keep doing that loop. So you kind of constrain your loop. The default loop grabs everything, and you can constrain that loop to grab just a category or just an author. And that's how the archive pages work and stuff like that. Does that kind of make sense? There's some good WordPress talks on the loop. If you're more interested, WordPress.tv has all the WordCamp talks, and many, many people have talked about the loop.
What did you just say that was called?
WordPress.tv, like television. WordPress.tv has almost all the WordCamps are recorded, and all the presenters in various states of quality. Almost all the presenter videos are up online there, so you get all kinds of different presentations. Really good resource. YouTube, you also find some stuff there.
This is a really good infographic, by the way.
Good, yeah, I thought it was really good too.
Really organized.
Yeah, thank you, Yost.
Yeah, and your description of just the components, I mean, it helps get the concept.
Good, yeah, to kind of figure out what's happening. Because now that you've worked with it a little bit, you can we're kind of lifting up the hood just a little, giving you a peek.
And that's why they call it content management, because that's all content going into different little boxes.
Yep, yeah. You're
What does
just,
it contain?
think of a big fishing bait box with different pieces of content. Yeah. Oh, there's a great, Karen McGrain does a really good talk on, she helped do the content management for public radio. Was it right? No. PBS, NPR, one of those. And she talks about chunks of content. It's a really good one.
What's your name?
Karen McGrain.
Green. Okay.
Yeah. She's a brilliant speaker. So the other parts, there's comments. So this is like the behind the scenes stuff. Comments.php controls the comments. I don't often work with a lot of comments. A lot of the sites I have are more marketing based, and comments are not that big a deal. But there are some sites where comments are huge, and so this is a file you would be messing with. They mention discuss right here. Looks like Disquis. That's a plugin, a very powerful plugin to manage comments if you're a site that has a lot of them. These two files you will probably touch. So styles.css we've already touched, right? We've used the Jetpack plugin feature to create our own CSS for our websites to style our theme if we wanted to change something. When you can't change it with style.css, you have to go into functions.php. These are the two, if you're using a pre-bought theme or if you didn't make your theme, these are the two files you would use. So when you create a child theme, it modifies the functions.php file. That's where those changes happen. The functions is where you change any programming. So if you wanted to add that featured image, you would do that here in the functions. You would not modify the core because it would, when you update, it's going to erase your changes. The functions file is kind of like the CSS, like that extra file you can change that will not harm the core. It'll just modify the core to your needs. So when you create a child theme, it changes the functions.php file. If you ever start doing development and you need to do something, this is where you're going to add in like an extra functionality there.
And do you always have a backup of the existing site and everything so you can not?
I do. Yeah, that duplicator is great because you can just pull a package and put it aside and then try what we're going to try. See if it works, and then you always have a backup. Yeah, sometimes I'll save various versions of the function. If I'm working with a lot of functions and trying a lot of different things, I'll call it like if it has to be called functions to work. So if you change the name of it, so I'll say like functions where I tried to do this thing, .php, and then it will be, that'll archive it. If it's not called functions, the system's not going to pull it. Okay. And then beyond the core functionality, you can add functionality without touching code or CSS by using plugins, custom fields, and widgets.
When you try to do different versions of functions, do you have to save the whole package of the website in the different version?
Just that file. If I'm just working with that file, then I just save the functions file.
So it's like in a folder or something?
Yeah.
So you could, if that folder breaks, then you can just put you can just throw that away and put a new one in, and it does remember everything else.
Yep. Yeah. Think of it like a Model T. Like you can take out the air filter. I don't even know if the Model T had an air filter. You could take out one piece and the car won't work or it might stumble and then put in a new one. That's how WordPress works. Everything is modular. So you can pull out this, replace it with this, have it do something else. That's why people like it so much, because you can customize just parts of it how you need.
That's why I'm saying in your folder, if you add something to it, that won't work. You know, so that can be in there with the wrong label.
Mm-hmm.
But then whatever the one has the right label, that's the one that activates.
Right. The system is looking for functions.php. If you spell functions with a K, it's going to break. It's not going to work. If you spell style wrong or have it be .css, it's not going to work.
If a theme comes with three capabilities with three sidebars, can you go in and modify and then add an additional sidebar?
Yep. Yeah, you would use the functions. You might have to, so you would create a child theme. And the way that a child theme works is that anything you put in there overrides the parent. So you would redo, say I had two sidebar widgets and I wanted to add a third. I would create a child theme, which is going to create a new theme file called, let's call it Sella Child. I would put a style.css file inside that theme folder. I would put a functions, and I would put a sidebar. I'm recording over there too on the board. Well, I should do it. I notice when I tape and I go over there, it doesn't come up on the, you can't hear it. So let me try this. Let's go. Just want applications. Okay, I'll show you. It's not going to show on the thing. Oh, I know what I can do. Okay, so when I create my child theme in the themes folder, so this is the file layout for WordPress. So it's got WP-content is that's where all the beef is, basically. That's where your themes are. And inside the themes, I've got Sella, which is the parent theme, right? And if I create a child, it's going to be called Sella Child. Inside that theme folder, if I'm in the sidebar example, I'm going to create a file called sidebar.php. I'm going to create one called style. If I'm going to restyle it, I don't necessarily need styles.css. And I'm going to have functions.php. And those are the three files I'm going to change. And when I create the child theme, WordPress is going to look for any files in that folder and use them instead of the ones in this parent. That make sense?
And if I don't know PHP, but I do know CSS, can I just go in and copy the PHP file function from the parent And-
No, you would not do that because, so remember, the child only pulls on top of the parent. You don't want to repeat all of the parent attributes. You only want to add new ones to your child theme. So you would not grab all the functions. You're only going to tweak what is applicable. So like in like a real world example, if I'm the parent, I give my child, brown hair, brown eyes, white skin. If you want to change their hair color, you're not going to talk about the other aspects. You're only going to change the hair color. So the hair color is the only thing that's going to be in the functions folder. Same with styles. You're not going to grab all the styles from your parent. You're just going to grab the ones you want to change. Okay? And it's pretty easy because if you, I'm going to download a theme really fast just so we can look at it. And PHP is not too hard to read. Like you can, so if you open your theme file and take a look, here's the functions. So this is the functions file. Where's the sidebar? That's the one I wanted, sorry. Okay, so if I wanted to create a nice new sidebar, that's it. That's all the code there. So if, and you can kind of read it, if this page has a sidebar, so if it's active, we're calling it sidebar 1. And then it basically puts it in there. Since I don't speak PHP, I would have to look up, I would basically Google how to add another sidebar, and I would add it. Using this code, you kind of, there's all these code examples, you kind of copy and paste, try it out, see if it works. But looking, kind of pulling apart a theme is a great way. So here's a content grid page. So you can kind of see it's getting the post thumbnail right here. And then this is PHP when it says PHP. That's pulling from the database. So it's saying database, I need the post thumbnail. And then it's writing the HTML. So create a div, give it a class of entry thumbnail. So here's the link. You've seen that before, href. And then it's calling PHP. So you're adding dynamic elements to static layout. So we're going to make a link here. And the link destination is going to be the permalink that's built in the site, right? The title is going to echo the permalink on the page. The title attribute, echo just means print what it says. And so there's the end right there of that href. And here's what's inside it. So post thumbnail. So this is a link of the thumbnail image. You see that kind of when you kind of break it apart? Okay, but I kind of digress here. And we'll talk more, like when they offer the second level of this class, I would hope it includes writing functions, and maybe we can partner with CSW or something. Yeah, so there's the extras, the plugins, custom fields. I think they changed the way that sidebars are done so that you can add as many as you want, but I can't remember. No, if you were going to add another sidebar location, you can add a dynamic sidebar to a template in a certain place. But anyway, okay. So again, just to kind of sum up, WordPress core, don't mess with that, you'll break your car, right? It won't run anymore. You can modify stuff by creating a child theme where you can insert your own functions, your own styles, your own page layouts as needed. Every theme, the WP content is really where all your customized content relevant to you lives. You're never really going to touch any of the other folders. That's all core. The only stuff that you're going to touch is the WP content because that's where your themes, your plugins, and your media live. So if you want to back up a site and you only have FTP, this is the folder you want to grab, WP content. That's going to have all the client's images and all the, I think it has all the users on all the themes. If you, just a side note, if you have a site and you have a bunch, you're trying out themes, and you have a bunch of themes in the appearance menu on the admin, and you don't want to see all those themes, you just delete them from the themes folder. If you delete the theme from the folder, it will not show up. Because for some reason, there's no way to delete it via the WordPress admin. You have to go into your file manager and delete it. So just FYI. Okay. Okay, that's the section on, like, that's the peek under the hood. Is that enough? Just enough, I hope? Kind of explain what's going on there? Yeah. Good, okay. Okay, so the next assignment, basically, kind of, I'm trying to step by step this final project out a little bit more for you. You should have been working, you should have done your mind map on what your site is, what it needs, what kind of pages you're gonna have, what kind of imagery you're gonna use. You gotta do another proposal, even if it's to yourself. That's how you win jobs. I want you to win jobs. I want you to be good at proposals. I want you to write a proposal in Google Docs, not in Illustrator, not in InDesign, in Google Docs. If you think Google's the devil and you don't want to play with Google Docs, you can write it in Word. I don't love that idea. I want you to use Google Docs, please. So your proposal, this, I'm talking 3 pages max. This should not be super long. And these are the sections I want you to write on. Just 2 to 3 sentences, make it concise. If you're ever saying, you know, and then there will be, and it's my idea that we should, that's junk language. I don't want to hear that. I want to see, I will install this. It will contain this. Be very clear. Use active voice. So at the top, there should be an executive summary. Write this last after you've figured out what the project looks like. I want you to identify the problem, the current situation and needs. This is something as simple as I need a portfolio website so that I can get a job. My portfolio website will show my print work, my web work, and my wood turning. I don't know, whatever you do, right? It will also house my resume and have a contact form. And it will have a URL that's easy to say and send to potential clients. Your solution is going to go a little bit deeper. I want you to cover what design or theme you're going to use. So it would be something like, I'm going to use a child of the Sella theme because I like the grid layout, and I'm going to use testimonials. I'm going to use I'm going to install the duplicator plugin, Yoast SEO, Google Analytics, and iTheme Security as my standard plugins. I'm also going to install Nevo Slider because I want to advance slider slides. The next section would be integrated services. I'm going to heavily tie my website with my social media presence. I'm going to use if this, then that to create a recipe where every time I post to Instagram, it makes a blog on my website, a blog post, which is really easy to do. Or I'm going to start an email newsletter, and I'm going to start a MailChimp account, and I'm going to put the sign up in the sidebar of the blog, period. I'm not looking for a long thing here. 1 to 3 pages, right? And then tell me about your hosting situation. Where is it going to be hosted? What's the domain going to be? Timeline and cost. I want you to, so the projects are going to be due. So our final week, we're not going to meet, unfortunately. But they will, I'm giving you till the end of the Monday after finals week. I know you might have other classes. That's it. Don't come to me for more time. That's already enough time because I have to grade your work and turn it in by a certain date, which I hope I'm giving myself enough time.
What day is that? What's the date?
Monday, May 23rd. That's a Monday. So that would be, if this class continued forever, that would be our next class. So the week of finals, I think, is Monday, the 16th.
And we will meet that.
We're not going to meet finals week,
Oh,
unfortunately. I'm on vacation.
Traffic,
I'm
yes.
so sorry.
It's
I had it booked way before I knew I was teaching. I'll be on cruising in Alaska. I'm excited, but I'm so sorry because that's usually a really great class where we show our work and potluck. So it's kind of a bummer. But if you turn them all in, I'll put links to everyone's work on my blog and then send out a newsletter, email blast so you all can see each other's work. Okay. So your timeline should take into account that is your due date. But I want you to keep track of how many hours, and I want you to include a cost section as if you were writing this for a client. If you're writing it for yourself, I want you to include your cost. So what would your hourly rate be? How long do you think these things are going to take you? And I want you to keep track of your hours. I use Harvest, but I pay for it. FreshBooks is free for up to 3 clients, I believe. Oh no, do they not have a free version anymore?
Paymo.
Huh?
Paymo.
Paymo?
Paymo.
Oh, this sucks. This used to be free. There's no more free one? Oh, okay. Paymo. Well, hopefully FreshBooks made their service better. It was only worth it because it was free. Paymo.
Paymo has the
Time tracking.
like 3 client limit, but you just kind of suspend it. You're probably done with it anyway, and you start a new one, but it still keeps your.
Okay. So I'll switch my link then. FreshBooks changed on me. So what you'll do is open a Paymo account. You can do this in a spreadsheet. You don't have to use something like this. So if you were to do a spreadsheet, it would be something as simple as take your, so this would be like time tracking for Fiona website. Why is it not that time tracking for, it's all final website. And then you're gonna just list the task bucket and then hours. Actually, I want you to know, so I want you to know how long your tasks are taking you.
How did you get that? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, this is Google Sheets.
Okay.
It's just their spreadsheet. Yeah. So that pops up this guy. So your task buckets might be, and this is going to be in your proposal. I copied it. So this is how I estimate my time. So design, development, and I forgot discovery. So every time you go to work on the site, I want you to choose which bucket area it is and write the date. So this would be like for mind mapping and content. And then depending on how you want to do it, you can do a start and an end and a time. So you could say I started at 11, I ended at 12, it's 1 hour. You are not going to be able to estimate for proposals until you know how long your tasks take you. And every time you measure, you're going to get a little faster at it, and you're going to know more about what things are going to hold you up. Okay? Brian Bourne had a really good test. He's like, I'll take a job if there's only one thing I don't know how to do. If there's 2, I'm not going to take it. Because there's always an unknown in any project you take. But if you can control that, so if you're building a site and you know how to do everything except this one little thing they want to add, that's cool. You can kind of estimate because you've been tracking your time and you know how long things take you. But you have to start somewhere. So start tracking your time. Track it by what bucket it is in, like what area. I want you to be able to tell me how long it takes you to set up WordPress on a new server. It should be 5 minutes, right? Through like your
WordPress.
install WordPress. That's it. People pay me to do this all the time. Go log into the hosting service like SiteGround and install a new WordPress So you're saying, I want it in this folder, you're adding a username and password, you're emailing that to yourself, you're setting up the admin file.
On someone else's computer.
If it's for a client, yeah. So I want you to keep track of how long these tasks take you so that you can estimate them. Okay? You might also have, you might also do this for budgeting. So like I have, start another sheet here, and you can have the same buckets. And in your proposal, you're gonna list out the technology you're using. So I usually take the table of the services provided and kind of break that down. So I know that it's gonna take me, I know the project's gonna be 6 weeks, and I'm gonna meet with the client for at least 15 minutes, at least 30 minutes once a week. So I list a line for admin. So, so project management basically, and it's gonna be 6 weeks times 0.5 hours. I always bill in quarter-hour increments. I highly recommend you do as well. Billing in 5 minutes is stupid. If you take 2 calls from them and they both take 5 minutes, then bill a quarter hour. You know, you can kind of work it out in your head. So 6 weeks at a half an hour, is that 3 hours? And then I know that server setup, install. So kind of just walk through it all in your head. So this is for a new client. They've purchased a server space. They've sent me the email with the information. I need to go in and set up all that stuff. That's probably going to take me an hour. I know that from experience that launch, I like to give that 2 hours, depending on how complicated it is. I know that when I'm looking for a theme selection, a lot of my proposals include, I send the client 3 themes, and kind of, I do a dummy site with their basic content, and I activate the theme and I take a screenshot, and then I do a paragraph and say, this theme is good because of XYZ, and here's a picture of it with your content, just like an image and a headline. And this is why the local development is so easy to, nice to have set up. So that theme selection actually takes me a few hours. I would say 3 hours, because I'm searching for themes. I'm setting up a development site on my local environment. I'm copying and pasting some of their existing content and maybe an image or 2. And then I'm installing the themes, activating the theme, taking a picture, a screenshot, activating the next theme, taking a screenshot, and writing a paragraph on each one. So I might even bump that up to 4 hours. Right? So there's theme selection, plugin selection, and install. That might be, we already know the basic 4 we're going to use. Say there's one new one that you have to install. So we might make that 2 hours. Theme customization. This one's probably going to be more. So you're, depending on what you promised your client. So it might just be adding their logo, changing some colors, changing some fonts. This might be 4 hours. This project management, even though the meeting is only going to be 10 minutes, I have to prep for that meeting, and I have to post, like write down anything I'm going to do after I get off the call with them. So every meeting is at least going to take me a half an hour. Even if I'm not actively talking to that client for a half an hour, I still need that time. So don't forget that PM time. That's valid. So you're gonna have your theme, you're gonna have your content migration and formatting. Depending on how much content that is, this totally depends on how many pages. If it's a 5-page website with 10 images, probably looking at 2 hours. If it's a city website with 500 pages and 600 images, you're looking at a lot larger number, right?
What does that say, content what?
Migration. So that's copying and pasting the content from the old site to the new site. Is that what you're asking?
That says formatting?
Formatting, yeah. So you're copying and pasting it, and then you have to clear out the old formatting. You need to add paragraph headings where applicable. And this totally depends on what you have decided with your client. when we're doing massive sites, we banked on 3 pages an hour. Think about that, 3 pages an hour, that's pretty slow. Because you have to go through it and make it look good and add the images, and you might have to resize images. And you might have to check spelling for them because their spelling's not right. You're gonna have to add pull quotes and format all the text and read it.
So is that, are you saying that you design the template and then they give you the content and then you're flowing, and you're talking about flowing their content into your content?
Yes, I'm taking their content from their old website and putting it into the new website. Often clients don't want to pay for this. I include it, in order to build a good site, I have to do some content migration. So I call it minimal and I charge, small amount for it. But
Why would they not want to pay for it?
it's expensive. It's time consuming.
Well, don't
And
they-
it's-
They don't think that it's a thing.
Usually they have someone to maintain their website and that person will do that activity as training. So I usually say in that situation that we'll do about 1/3 of it just to get the bones in there. And then their maintenance person needs to go in and finish it.
And so you estimated at 3 per hour, 3 pages per hour?
That's what we came up with after keeping track. And that's for sites where you've got like at least 50 to 100 pages of content and those pages are at least 3 screens. That's a good average, I think. So you're gonna need QA and testing. If we have time, I'm gonna have you guys set up a user test on your site. Should be kind of fun. Real quick
You
one.
mentioned that we can do that offline too, if you're working on
User testing?
local, you can look at it in different browsers,
You just download browsers to your computer and look at it.
but you're not online.
Oh, yeah, that'll still work if you're not online. Your browser will work on locally. Browser Stack is also they'll give you some free stuff. They do comparisons. QA is quality assurance. So you're basically going through and making sure what you built works and it doesn't look like crap and looks good. And then you're testing it on multiple browsers. I give that 1 to 2 hours. Let's see, is this everything? Setting up the server, installing the theme, plugins, theme customization, project management. This is for a small site. So let's just total that up. So it's 20 hours. For a small website, that's pretty good. That's totally valid. Here's where it gets, if you're proposing and they know that they only have budget for 15 hours. So here's what I do. I write down everything we're gonna do. If I have a team, I do different columns for different team members and what they're gonna do and how many hours they're gonna get for each task. And then I'll write our hourly rate. And then I will do the hourly rate times the hour, get the total, and see if that's something I can sell. And I'll move it up or down depending. If I know this client needs a lot of hand-holding and that I'm gonna have to talk them through, especially training, and they like to call and they kind of freak out, they need a little bit more hand-holding, I might up that to 4. If I know this client's gonna have a lot more content, if they say they're gonna have 5 pages, but I really think they're gonna have like 8 because they keep talking about all these other pages they want, I'm gonna put it in the proposal that it's 5 to 8, and I'm gonna up this to like 3. This is also if I know that this client has this kind of budget. If I know it's a small business and they have like $500, this is gonna look a lot different than if it's a corporation that is doing a promotion and I know that they have like $5 grand. I'm gonna add more stuff in here. I'm gonna do more for them. I'm gonna set up the email newsletter. I'm gonna set up social stuff. I'm gonna build them social media headers and announcements. Don't leave the money on the table. Like if you know that they say that they have $5 grand, sell them $5 grand worth of stuff. Don't mark up what you already have, but provide them more solutions. Give them more for their money, right? Build them a nicer whatever.
We can do it because I find a lot of times clients won't disclose their budget they want you to bid on it. And so you're bidding, but you have no idea. It's actually hard to try to
Yeah.
figure out where like to sell them, but
That really sucks.
well, just make me easier question. Then.
Mhm.
Okay, say a client says, I have $500 to do a web page. Then what do you do?
Okay, $500 website. I'm gonna make them install WordPress on their own site. I'm gonna choose one theme for them and tell them that they're using that theme. I'm gonna use my standard 4 plugins and no extras. I'm gonna tell them I will throw your logo in there and I will change the colors. I am going to meet with you once to discuss the project, once to review the project, and once to launch the project. I am going to put in almost none of your content. I'm going to build it on your site. This is presumably their first site, so I don't have to build it on a development server. I can build it right where it's going to live. So launch is nothing because it's there. And I'm going to have them do the QA and testing. I'm going to look at it. So I probably actually do like that. I just brought that down to 6 hours. And I might cut my rate if I like them.
Can you go back to the content? You said you weren't going to touch that, or you weren't going to do it?
Yeah.
Or, maybe.
I would put in the name of their company and build their menu.
So are you gonna present something really basic like that and then let them know this is as low as I would go and then you can go from there?
I usually tell people I don't engage for less than $500. Like if you want a $500 website, I can whip that out in an afternoon. That's fine. I'll help you out. I do a lot of work in trade too, cash and trade. It's like there's always something, especially if it's a new business. So I did work for the Shack, the East Sac Shack, the sandwich shop. I invited them to come in, and actually the students did a project for them. So everyone designed the site for them. They chose a student. The student and I built the site, and they paid. We gave the winning student like $100 credit to their shop, so that cost them less. And then they paid me. I subbed out to the student, and they paid us. I paid the student like, I want to say a few $100s. They paid me in rental of their restaurant for my 10-year anniversary. So like trade, right? I'm also talking to a guy that is starting a bounce house company. I'm going to build his site for $350 and then get 3 bounce house rentals. Like, make it work, right? If they really want to work with you and you like them enough to want to work with them, you can build a website for $500 and tell them, I can build this for you, but it's going to be really basic. I will show you briefly how to do it, but you kind of got to, it depends. And if you want the experience and you need it on your resume, then.
So there's different ways to negotiate, and I remember part of Sandra's question being,
that other, if you don't know their budget.
You don't know, you think they could afford who knows how much, but they're trying to just see what you can say.
Yeah, so there are a lot of ways to kind of figure that out. People that do that are not people, they're organizations. And they're generally government organized, because humans don't do that. That's just stupid. Like, I want to buy a car, but I'm not going to tell you how much I'm going to spend. Like, well, get out of here. That's stupid. Organizations do that. It's also stupid. If it's a government organization, they are required to list their budgeting. That's a really good way to know how much money they have. I've dug into city budgets like nobody's business to find out what their IT budget is and what their marketing budget is, and see if they line item for a new website, and then try and get in that region. You can find out what their services cost. And there's something called value-based pricing, where it's like, you say, basically the formula is, if I build you a website, your business should increase by 10%. That 10% translates into, basically you say, I'm going to do XYZ that's going to improve your business, get you more clients to the tune of perhaps 10% additional clients per year. That's going to translate into, say we're talking haircuts, 100 more haircuts. Each haircut is $45. that 10% spike in business, so you take some percentage of that. So you say, you know, how much is it worth to you that you get more business or that you look more professional? So you can kind of figure out that way, kind of what's going on.
What is your, like for an average small business, and I mean like a small sort of mom-and-pop business, what is your average, like if you want to give them, you know, a nice web page that doesn't require them to do too much work, but it's just your bare basic, but you're not making them do a lot of stuff, what is your average quote or something like that?
To 2,500. What you saw here with the 20 hours is pretty.
That's a pretty standard.
I get a lot of them about that price. If it's,
That's like the ideal, most comfortable entry level website. Like
those are the ones I like to build. They're pretty quick.
but
the
for
clients are
client
happy.
too, it's easiest for them.
Yeah, it really depends on the client. You know, I've had so a community association website might be a couple grand, and it depends on their budget, you know, and you can tell by what their membership fees are, how old their website is, what other initiatives they have going on. If you're doing more complicated stuff like e-commerce or membership systems, then the price should go up to 4,000 to 5,000. If you're working for a corporation and you have to get approval from a number of people, your price automatically goes up because you're going to have to make more revisions to your work and you're going to have to coordinate and project manage more.
How much, like, do you have like a percentage that you kind of like?
Most companies aren't going to hire a single freelancer to do their website. So I've not come across that problem. Because most corporate websites are going to start at 10 grand at least. Just because there's more talking, there's more discovery, there's more work. Because you're herding more cats. If it's a small business, there's 2 cats, you know, and that's easy. But yeah, especially like if there's presentations to the board and training of the marketing department, I mean, all of that stuff goes into it. So it costs more. So, cool. So give me a loose timeline in your proposal. If you're writing it to yourself, consider this a blueprint. Just title it that way. You can pretend you're writing it to a client, or you can just call it a blueprint and say what you're going to do. Do a little worksheet like that. Give me your cost. I'll link this so you guys have it. And that's it. That's how I want. That's your next assignment is the proposal. So post that. So it should be a Google Doc. You can save it as a PDF. So print, save as PDF. That's going to get you the best result. And then post that on your blog. If you don't want to post like your cost information, I understand. You can just send it to me in the Dropbox and maybe just write a brief blog post about it. Yeah. So that's your next assignment. I'm just going to keep going and then I'll stop for the day. So the next part is content. You should have started writing your content. I just want you to review it. Again, this should be in a text doc. Create headers, use as few words as possible. If you did like the verbal vomit and just wrote, you should be tailoring that down, crunching it down. Use spell check. Have someone else you trust read it just to make sure it makes sense. Add heading, paragraph headers, page headers, block quotes. Link your text in your Google Doc because you can paste it in and that link will stay. Don't bury your pages.
What?
Huh? Oh, sorry.
That just went, that flew by.
Oh, if you create links from text in your Google Doc and you copy and paste that text into WordPress, that link should stay activated when you copy and paste it, so you don't have to make it again.
Wait a minute. So when you do your WordPress page, instead of copying and pasting instead of copying and pasting the document directly into WordPress, you're saying to link it to the page?
No, sorry. Here, let me.
Sounds like there's-
So you should be writing your content in a Word doc like this, and this is not what you would say, but welcome to my website, I love dogs. And say I want it to be perfect in your Word doc. I want you to get this all set up the way you want. And then when you're making your website, you're going to copy this and paste it. I'm going to go to my WordPress website. I'm going to edit the page. I'm going to paste it in. Let's just do a test to make sure that this is going to stay. Yeah, so see that link stayed. So I want you to link any words that are relevant. So if you're talking about your resume, it should link to your resume. If you're talking about the services you're doing, it should link to the services page. If you're talking about a trip you went on and you stayed at a certain hotel, link to that hotel. Search engines love links. The more links you have, the higher your site's going to rank, and the more ways people can find you, and the more ways that you're sharing, you're connecting the web. It's a beautiful thing. You're making connections. Links are good. You're helping people find out more about the things you're talking about, and you're helping your search engines.
That's pretty profound.
Totally, man. So I'm gonna write your homework here. Write 1 to 3 page proposal on your final site. Okay. So yeah, you should be looking at your content, going through it, making it concise, checking for extra words that don't help your cause. And
Do you have a problem with us keeping it private while we're working on it? And you said to go to the site ground to figure out how to do that, but.
no, that's fine. You can't really keep it private. You can password protect the pages if you want. That's built in. You can have it not list on search engines. That's about it. So you can do that.
So on WordPress, ordinarily you have the option to make your site public or not.
On .com?
Yeah.
Yeah, that you could do. But if you build it on .com, I don't know how easy it is to transfer that somewhere else if you're going to need to do
Okay,
that.
that's not gonna happen.
Yeah. You should, ideally you want to build it where it's going to live. Otherwise we have to move it. And you can use that WP clone, that was really easy. But I don't know if you can, you might want to Google that and see if you can
No, this
WP.
is fine. I just rather not have it up there. It's not, I mean, it's not ready.
Yeah.
So people, if I am applying for work or someone's looking for me for whatever reason, it just looks like it's not ready. So. that's-
You could put up just a homepage that says as much,
Yeah,
and then create the other pages.
I'm not publishing.
Well, you're going to want to test it and link. Yeah, you could not publish them. You could draft, just have them be drafts for a while if you're really concerned. You could, so what you could do is create a homepage that says, I'm working on my site. It'll be up on this date. Then create another page and have like a menu on just that page, have it be kind of hidden. And then create a menu. So have like 2 home pages, create a second working homepage and have links to all your other pages there. And not, just they're basically hidden by the fact that you can't get to them.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I think there's some plugins out there that'll say.
Yeah, there are maintenance mode
Yeah, maybe.
plugins that you can use as well.
Okay.
So there are definitely options if that's a concern for you. So review your content, keep reviewing it, do it a couple days in a row. And I have one last slide on finding images because this is always something people ask about. The places I go to find images are Google Advanced Search for royalty-free images, Wikimedia Commons, which are all in the Creative Commons. Most all those images are public domain. Sometimes you have to cite the author. Flickr also has a Creative Commons. If you've not heard of Creative Commons, it's a share and share alike licensing system where basically you can use the image and just say who it's from and link back to their site. Pixabay is a user submitted stock photo site. So I submitted a few images and I get to use images there for free. The rest of this list, this credit here, is this huge list of 365 awesome free resources for entrepreneurs. And they had all these, they had a whole section on finding images. So I just put those in there for you. I have not checked those out. So, but if you want to look at them and find some value there, that's great. Okay, that's what I got today. So we'll take the rest of the class to just kind of work on your stuff. I want to come by and look at your content. And proposals are due next week.
I have a question about multiple sidebars, because you can do different sidebars on different pages, and I know we want to be consistent, but what are the guidelines for using that feature?
It's changing. So the question was, can you have multiple sidebars on multiple pages? I think we're getting that makes more sense now, and because the technology is there. Like, it would make sense to have on your about page to have your sidebar have, you know, articles you've written, maybe clubs you're in, and your picture. Whereas on your services page, it might make sense to have links to your Dribble account and your portfolios. I think that's great. I think as long as they are styled consistently, that having them be targeted content for that page's need, I think that's a great idea. It just takes more work. Yeah. Any other questions for the whole? Okay. Cool. Thanks, guys.